Hello everyone, welcome back to this series of video lecture. So if you remember in previous lecture we had discussed about preposition. We gave basic idea about what is the definition of preposition and types of preposition. In this lecture I would be talking about certain fixed prepositions. Like there are certain cases where we use only certain preposition. So we'll be talking about those instances, and also we'll be talking about few common errors in terms of preposition usage. So I am Arif Ahammed. I teach English in the Department of SNH, MLR Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. So let's see what is the overview of today's lecture. Two things basically: list of certain nouns and adjectives that take certain preposition or fixed preposition you can take. So we'll be talking about certain nouns and adjectives. They always take certain prepositions only. And another thing I will be talking about in today's lecture is few common errors that we commit while using preposition. So now let's see definition of preposition. You have already understood a preposition is a word which is placed before a noun or pronoun to show its relationship with other words in a sentence. Right, so this relationship can be in terms of this. I have already defined, like already discussed in the previous lecture. What is the definition of preposition? It establishes some sort of relationship of a noun or pronoun and with the other parts of the word or other words in a sentence. Now let's see certain common verb and preposition combinations. So as I told in the first part of the lecture, I will be talking about certain verbs that always takes certain prepositions. So you can see when we are talking about these particular two preposition about and at, you can find certain verbs, they always take this preposition. See, for example, worry, compel, complain and read. These three verb, they will always take this particular preposition in most of the cases. So what are the preposition? As you can see here, preposition of here I will be talking about this. Yes, so preposition of worry, complain and read. So see the example sentence. He worries about the future. So worry is there. Here you can see worries and about, and then you can see complain about, read about. Right. So if you remember, it becomes easier for us to be correct while we are using preposition. Now again, second example is at. Now what are the verbs that takes normally this preposition? Arrive. Okay, but you have to remember here, when we arrive in a building or event, we call at. Okay, smile, look. Now all these are examples. Like these are the verb that takes this particular preposition. He arrived at the airport. You can see the children smiled at her. She looked at him. So these are all examples. Now let's see a few more preposition which is used with certain group of verbs. So from, when we are talking about this particular preposition from, we can find these two verbs. Okay, differ from, suffer from. You can see the result differ from my original idea. Suffer from, suffers from dementia. So you can see these are common expression. This form, in most of the cases you will find these particular verbs will take this particular preposition only. Similarly for, account for, allow for, search for, these are all examples. Like you will find these verbs always take this particular preposition. You can see the example they are searching for very common expression. You can see I returned the transcript to the interviews to allow for revisions. So for revisions. Now next, in or off. So you can see when we are talking about the verbs like occur, result, succeed, please remember we are talking about verb here. Then they will take this particular preposition in. You can see here the same problem occurred in 3 out of 4 cases. So in here you can see occurred in, then resulted in, succeeded in. So these are, you can see in most of the cases, these verbs, in most of the cases you will find they are taking this particular preposition on only. Similarly, these particular verbs approve, consist, smell, they take only this preposition of. You can see I approve of the idea. The recipe consists of. The basement smells of, mildew. So you can see these are all examples. Like normally whenever we are using or we use this kind of verb in a sentence, you will find in most of the cases we would be using or we are supposed to use these prepositions only. Now, few more example on and to. So which are the verbs that are always or in most of the cases take the preposition on? You can see concentrate, depend, insist. So whenever we are using these verbs, you will always find in most of the cases we are using this particular preposition only. See the example here, they depend on. So you can see depend with the verb depend, we are using a preposition on. Concentrating on, then insist on. So similarly, you can see these particular verbs, they will always, in most of the cases, might not be always, but in most of the cases, usually, they take this particular preposition only. Please refer to, you can see refer to, lead to, contribute to. Now these are all examples. You can see these are the example sentences. Fine. Now, so we till now we did talk about what? We did talk about certain common verb and preposition combinations. So we did talk about around 8 to 10 common verb and preposition combinations, and these there are many other prepositions also. I'm not, I know we'll not have time to discuss about all of them, but these prepositions are the one which we use, very commonly, right? So we did talk about, or I did talk about those prepositions. Now, next part we'll be talking about adjective and preposition combination. Like in the previous slides, we saw how certain verbs actually take certain prepositions. Similarly, certain adjectives also have their own preposition in most of the cases. Usually I'm talking about common. Now see here, these are the adjectives: good, grateful, happy, responsible, sorry, order. Order, here we have to remember we are using the word order as noun. Okay. So for that, we always take what? This preposition. For, we use the preposition for. Now, I am grateful for his help. You can see he is responsible for the problem. For. Similarly, employed, good, arrive, they always take at. Beneficial, similar, accustomed, grateful, opposed. I am accustomed to his torture. To. You can see these are all, these preposition will always take this particular preposition, these adjectives. So in left side column, you can find all the list of adjectives that take certain kind of preposition, which is in the right column. So capable, characteristic, aware, composed, proud. After all these things, what we use this particular preposition of. Now, the last part of the lecture, which is very important. Now I'll be talking about certain common errors in preposition usage. So when we use preposition, in spite of knowing the categories of preposition and all, we might end up doing certain mistakes. So we have to be extra careful and mindful about those instances. So let's see what are those. You can see these are example of two prepositions, beside and besides. Now normally try to recollect. When you write, in many cases we actually don't bother about this last s. We sometimes use interchangeably. Where we are supposed to use only beside, we might write, or we used to write, besides. But you have to understand that there are two different prepositions altogether. One s, this last s can make a huge difference. You can see what is the meaning of beside. Beside means at the side of something, right? And another besides means, when it comes to this beside, it means in addition to. See the difference, it's huge difference. Example, my school is beside the lake. So I'm talking about location here. Beside means, the relationship is in terms of what? Location. But here if I say he is learning English besides. Besides means what? In addition to. See the differences here. Similarly, since and for also sometimes we use interchangeably. But we have to understand that they are different and they should be used for two different purposes. Since, when do we use since? When we talk about a time duration, extended time obviously, but it would have a starting point but no end point. See here, we have been doing it since morning. So what? I am talking about a starting point, that is morning, but there is no end point. It has been going on till. See, to indicate that kind of, action which is still going on, we normally use this preposition since. But when we are talking about a completed duration, what we use? We use for. They have been learning English for many years. So I'm talking about a duration, right? He is in Hyderabad for 3 weeks, let's say for 3 weeks. Or he was in Hyderabad for 3 weeks. So I'm talking about a completed duration. So see the differences here. Then again, between and among, there might be a confusion while we would be using these two particular prepositions. Sometimes we use them interchangeably, but again, they are different. You should not be using them interchangeably. See the difference. What is the difference between them? Between is used for two persons or things, while among is used for more than two. So if we're talking about two persons, then we can use between. But when the number of person will exceed 2, we cannot use between anymore. We have to use among. So that's why you can see here, I stood between Bandana and Jyoti. So two person I am talking about, so I am saying between. But here, this is a custom which exists among the tribals. So here, when I am saying the tribals, I am not talking about 2 persons. I am talking about many more, right? Tribals. So that's why I am not using between. I am using what? Among. So I hope these 3 things are clear. These are very common preposition that we use, but sometimes we do mistake while using them. Now next, see a few more. Differ from and differ with. This is one another commonly confused preposition. Differ from and differ with. So you can see differ from. When do we use differ from? When we talk about dissimilar. Okay, whereas differ with means to disagree with someone. So dissimilar and to disagree with something, someone. So understand, when the difference is, with a person, when we're talking about the difference between 2 person, like if I'm not agreeing with someone, a person, then what I'll use differ with. But if I'm talking about 2 different objects, okay, dissimilar object, then we will be using differ from. You can see this picture differs from that one. So I'm talking about 2 pictures. They are not person. That's why differ from. I differ with my father on this issue. I differ with my father. So differ with, you can see here, differ with. Because I'm talking about persons now, me and my father, both are persons, right? That's why I'm using differ with. Agree with, agree to, same logic, right? When we agree to a proposal, we have to use the word agree to. You can see here, the members of the council didn't agree to the proposal. So I'm talking about a proposal here. So that's why I agree to I am using. But see the first example, I know he will not agree with us. Here I am using agree with. Why? Because here we are talking about persons, right? He will not agree with us. So we are talking about, persons. But here I'm talking about only a proposal, which is not a person. That's why I agree to. Now, next one, as and like. Where are we supposed to use as, and when are we supposed to use like? We use as to talk about a job or a function, while we use like to talk about things being similar. So this like indicates similarity, and when we talk about job or function, we normally use as. See the example here. You can use this bucket as a dustbin. So here I'm using, because my point, intention here is to talk about that a bucket can also function as a dustbin. So that's why I'm using as. But here you can see, you look like your mother. I'm talking about similarity, right? To talk about things being similar. So I'm talking about 2 persons, they look similar. So that's why I'm using like. Fine. So please understand the difference between as and like. The next one. Now these are few commonly used sentences where which will give us more idea about few certain common error in terms of preposition usage. So he goes to school by foot. It apparently sounds fine, right? But you need to understand here this is wrong. That's why I put it in red font. Why it is wrong? Because whenever we are using the word foot, we have to use on. The correct sentence would be, he goes to school on foot, not by foot. Okay, by you can use if you are talking about a mode of transportation. Now what is mode of transportation? You can see I go to school by bus. Bus is a mode of transportation here. So in that case, it is fine. But whenever you are using the word foot, remember foot always takes this particular preposition only, on foot. So that's why the correct sentence would be, he goes to school on foot. Fine. Now, second one, the DCP has ordered for his dismissal. Again, if you are a little absent-minded or if you are not paying that much attention, apparently the sentence might sound okay. The DCP has ordered for his dismissal. But we need to understand here, it's wrong. We are not supposed to use any preposition here. What is the logic? You see, no preposition. What would be the correct sentence? The DCP has ordered his dismissal. There should be no for. It should be simply the DCP ordered his dismissal. Now the logic here is, whenever the word order is used as a verb, please remember, as a verb, we are not supposed to use any preposition. It cannot take any preposition. Fine, that's why there should not be any preposition. But sometimes we use the word order as, let's say adjective also. For example, I have placed an order, right? or I have placed an order for a cup of coffee. So you can see I have placed an order. Order is a noun here. I am using the word order as a noun, not as a verb. So that's why I am saying I have placed an order for. So when I'm using the word order as noun, we can use the preposition for. But whenever we are using the word order as verb, we are not supposed to use any preposition. Fine. I hope it's clear now. And see the next sentence, Rahul insisted to play. Now again, you have to remember that the word insist will always take the preposition on only. So we cannot say Rahul insisted to play. We have to say the correct sentence would be Rahul insisted on playing. Now here another thing you need to remember, you cannot use the exact sentence structure. Whenever you are using this particular preposition, which you have to use if you are talking about this word insist, then you have to use the ing form of the verb. Fine. So you have to change the sentence a bit. Apart from changing the preposition, you need to change the structure of the sentence also. Why? Because after on, you cannot use the main verb play. You cannot say Rahul insisted on play. That would be wrong. So after on, insist will always take the preposition on, and because the preposition would be on, you have to always use ing form of the main verb. Fine. I hope it's clear now. Now see, again, bike lovers. See the sentence. Let's go for riding. You are always ready to go, right? Now, see, this is wrong. We cannot say let's go for riding. It's technically or grammatically wrong. Why? What is the logic here? We are not supposed to use, in this kind of sentence structure, we are not supposed to use any preposition. We have to simply say, let's go riding. That would be the correct expression. Let's go riding. So please remember that. Next one, I am considering about. Again, this is again very commonly misused preposition combination, considering about. Whenever we use the word considering, in most of the time unconsciously we end up using about, but that is wrong. We are not supposed to use the preposition about if we are using the word considering. So what would be the correct sentence here? I am considering joining club literary. Yes, club literary is my favorite, so I'm talking about club literary. You can replace the club with any other club's name, but what you need to understand here is the fight is not between clubs. The fight is about understanding the concept correctly. So what is that concept? If we are using the word considering, it will not take any preposition. That's why no preposition. You have to simply say, I am considering joining this club or that club. Fine. Now next one, my sister likes to pray at night. Now again, normally when we were dealing about preposition of time, we saw that at is a preposition of time. But then we need to remember that with night, with this night word, we cannot use the preposition at. Night always takes what? In. Fine. So we have to use the preposition in here. But is it correct? My sister likes to pray at night. Actually, I put it in a different way. This is actually correct preposition. Before night, we are supposed to use the preposition at. We cannot use in with the word night. Fine. Now let's see to the next category. I am going to home. Now again, sounds very common. I'm going to home, but it's wrong. Grammatically, completely wrong. We are not supposed to use any preposition. To we can use with a physical object if we are entering into a physical object. So for example, house. House is a building. So in that case, I can say I am going to my house. That is fine. But when I'm talking about home, home is not a physical object. It's an abstract concept. That's why you are not supposed to use any article. What I have to say here, what would be the correct sentence? I am going home. So again, this is very commonly misused, scenario. Please be careful about it. Then we discussed about. You see, same logic like considering about. We cannot use any preposition with the word considering. Similarly, when we are talking about discuss, we are not supposed to use the preposition about. What we need to understand here is that when we use the word discuss, discuss itself contains about. What is the meaning of discussion? To talk about something, right? So the meaning, the sense of this word about is already incorporated in the word discuss. That's why you are not supposed to use any preposition. So what would be the correct sentence? We discuss the problem, right? Then here, the last one. they arrived to the airport. Now, here you remember when we're talking about arriving at a building or at a event, we cannot use to. What we have to use? We have to use the preposition at. So what would be the correct sentence? They arrived at the airport. That would be the correct sentence. Fine. So now let's see the takeaway points of today's lecture. So certain verbs and adjectives, we got to know about the combination. We got to know that certain verbs, they use only or they take only certain kind of preposition. So that would be useful to minimize the error in preposition usage, right? If we can remember those combinations. So what are the things? Verbs and adjective combination, as well as adjective plus preposition. Verbs and preposition, and adjectives and preposition combination. So this is one important thing that we have learned from today's lecture. And then the second point, we tend to get confused about the exact preposition. So we came up, or we got to know about certain commonly expressed sentences where we actually use preposition in a wrong manner. As I told, I am going to home, very commonly used expression, but then there is a mistake in terms of preposition usage. So that is also one important aspect that we have learned today. I hope these things will help you to use preposition in grammatically correct way. So thank you for attending the lecture. We'll meet you soon again with the next topic. Thank you.